بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah with regards to the rulings of fasting, these verses in which Allah commands us to fast the month of Ramadan. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِن كُنتُم مَرْضَى أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, what translates to, after commanding fasting the month of Ramadan, he says, and if any of you is ill or traveling, then he is to make up his missed days with any other days from the rest of the year. So we take these words here and let's kind of unpack them a little bit. Try to understand what the scholars, the Islamic jurists understood with regards to the rulings of these words of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that fasting Ramadan is obligatory. Then he says, unless any of you is ill or traveling. What does that mean? Meaning that it is obligatory, but it is not obligatory upon a person who is traveling or ill. That's what is meant. So when a person is sick or a person is traveling, and we will try to get into what level of sickness, what level of illness, what constitutes traveling. What he says is, if you are traveling or if you are ill, you are exempt. It is not obligatory upon you. So fasting Ramadan, hence we understand, is obligatory upon a person who is a resident and a person who is healthy. A resident, meaning he's not traveling. Healthy, meaning he's not ill. Tonight we want to speak about illness, the first part that he mentions. He says, and if any of you is ill, sick, marad. The word marad in the Arabic language is the exact antonym. It is the exact opposite in meaning of health. Just like health has many levels. We could say a person is very healthy, a person is moderately healthy. Likewise is illness. A person can be incredibly ill or moderately ill or slightly ill. What is the level of illness that allows a person to break his fast? What is the level of illness that a person must have in order to be exempt from this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah doesn't specify in the verse. He doesn't tell us exactly. He doesn't say if you are illness extremely ill. He doesn't say if you are moderately ill. He uses the word ill, a general term. He doesn't say if you are traveling very far. He doesn't say if you are traveling for a long time. He says traveling. It's open-ended. Now, what do we do when we get a command from Allah or His Messenger that is open-ended? I'm going to tell you of something which is considered to be a principle of fiqh. A principle of fiqh, meaning this is a principle that all of the fuqaha agree on. There are 5 principles of fiqh that all of the fuqaha agree on. Ijma'. One of those 5 is this statement I'm going to make now. And that is, Al-'ada muhakkama. The word, the exact wording of this principle of fiqh, this rule of fiqh is Al-'ada muhakkama. That what is commonplace, what is common in any society, place, time, or people, It is what is intended by the commands of the Quran and Sunnah unless otherwise specified. What does that mean? So for instance, we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam whenever he would come to a person's home and he would knock on the door or announce himself, right? Because it wasn't always doors, sometimes it was just the tent. He announced himself. This is called then, right? He's knocking. Anas says he would only ask 3 times. He would only knock 3 times. We've heard this before, right? He would do his then 3 times. 3 times. If no one answered, he would leave. Now, if we were to take that and try to implement it today, is it correct for me to understand that when I call someone, I should only allow the phone to ring 3 times? That's it. If it rings more than 3 times, I should turn the phone off. Or if I come to someone's house and they have a giant mansion, right? And they are wandering somewhere in this giant mansion, should I only knock 3 times? Is there an instance where I would knock 10 times? Is there an instance where it would be appropriate to call back 3 times? The answer is yes. Why? Because what is appropriate for our time and place allows that. What was appropriate for his time and place disallowed more than 3. Beyond 3 is bad manners, right? It's obnoxious. Same thing in our time. Perhaps 3, perhaps it is 6, perhaps it is 10. It depends. Likewise, keeping in touch with our relatives. Allah tells us, keep in touch with your relatives. How often? Do I have to call them every day? Do I have to send them gifts? Do I have to go visit them every day? What is the bare minimum of keeping in touch with your relatives? It's open-ended. Why? Because al-'ada muhakkama. Because customs are what are intended by Allah's commands that are open-ended. Whatever is considered to be acceptable as a bare minimum for keeping ties, whatever is enough for my relative not to say, you don't call me, you don't ever talk to me. Whatever will push me past that threshold, that is what Allah intended when He commanded. Is that clear? Right? Al-'ada muhakkama, meaning it's based on the custom, time and place. What is obnoxious in one time and place is considered not to be in one time and place, right? What is considered to be acceptable in some time and place is considered to be unacceptable in some time and place. It depends. Same thing, are all of my relatives that I have to keep in touch with, are they all on the same level? Like keeping in touch with my direct parents, is it the same as keeping in touch with my grandparents or my great-grandparents? Or what about my third cousin? Are they the same as my direct brother or sister? No, it's different. Different levels. Well, what is the specifications for those levels? There's no specification. It depends on the customs of that time and place. Whatever is considered to be acceptable, enough, that's what's intended. All right? The same thing goes with illness, and the same thing goes with travel. There is no bare minimum for travel. What makes you a traveler? Well, sometimes we read often in some of the books of fiqh, or we've heard, a lot of us, 80 kilometers. 80 kilometers is travel. So if I travel 80 kilometers, I'm traveling. So what does that mean? Does that mean if it's 79 kilometers, I'm not traveling? Is that what that means? Think about it. If we're traveling together, and I reach 80 kilometers, I stop, and you reach 79. You're traveling behind me, and you stop. You make your full salah, and I make half of the salah, even though we can see each other? The answer is no. That's not what is intended. These numbers are not arbitrary. The scholars derived this from the bare minimum that is narrated that the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, shortened his prayer in his travel. Thalathat farasikh, right? Or tis'at farasikh. It comes out roughly to about 80 kilometers. That doesn't mean that that is the minimum for travel. What that means is that at his time and place, it just so happened that he stopped for salah at that distance. That's all that means. Same thing with the amount of time of travel. And the same thing goes for illness. Illness, when a person is exempted from fasting, a person is allowed to join his prayers. What is the bare minimum of illness? The scholars say any illness that will cause a person hardship, reasonable hardship. Number two, it will increase his illness, fasting. Number three, fasting will delay his recovery. Number four, fasting doesn't directly impact his illness in any way. However, it impacts the therapy for his illness. He has to take some kind of pill. He has to take some kind of medicine orally that will break his fast. Fasting itself has no impact on his illness. However, it has impact on his schedule for taking his medication, for going through therapy, right? For therapizing his illness. This is what constitutes breaking a person's fast. It doesn't matter if a person, it doesn't have to be so intense that you're going to die. You're at the brink of death. It could be that it's intense enough that all you can think about is how difficult this fasting is. That is enough to break a person's fast for illness, right? And this is why we see the companions, radiyallahu anhum. You read in the books that collect the actions of the companions, you see, like Musannaf Abdul Razzaq, Musannaf Ibn Abi Shayba, these books that focus on that, Sunan al-Bayhaqi al-Kubra, Sunan al-Daraqutni. You see there's a lot of narrations where companions and tabi'een, tabi'een, they break their fast because of an intense headache. They break their fast because of a toothache. They break their fast because of a cut that they receive. They break their fast because of a break, right? Person breaks his finger. Does that have anything to do with fasting? Fasting will not impact that at all. However, breaking of the fast comes because of what? Because of the difficulty he finds. Because of some kind of therapy he needs to take, or because of the pain, especially in the years before alcohol was prohibited. Remember this. In the years before alcohol was prohibited, they used alcohol primarily for what? As an anesthesia, as a painkiller, correct? They used alcohol as a painkiller. They used to drink alcohol before going into battle. They used to drink alcohol before having some kind of procedure. And this was used as a painkiller or as a sedative. Therefore, you'll find narrations in the early days in Medina where companions broke their fast, not necessarily because it impacts the illness, but because breaking their fast is necessary because of some other thing. For instance, there's a narration where one had broken his finger. He broke his fast. Why did he break his fast? For the pain. Because they had different types of painkillers that they used. And in order to address that pain, he broke his fast. There is no bare minimum to a person's illness to break their fast. This is a very important point because this is an allowance from Allah. This is an allowance from Allah. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ says regarding the allowance of Allah, the rukhsa, he says, listen to this narration. He says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ أَن تُؤْتَى رُخَصُهُ كَمَا يُحِبُّ أَن تُؤْتَى عَزَائِمُهُ. Listen to this narration. He says, Allah loves that His allowances be taken just as He loves His obligations be fulfilled. Right? Imagine that I'm at your house. You invite me over. And you offer me something. I say, no, I don't want to take it. I refuse to take it. Wouldn't you feel like offended? I don't have to take it. I don't have to give it to you, but I'm giving you this from my generosity, and you're turning my hand back, right? This is why the Prophet tells us, teaching us, this is our relationship between Allah. When Allah gives, you take. Whatever it is, you take. We need it. There is nothing Allah offers us that we don't need, including His rukhas, including His allowances. So the Prophet ﷺ teaches us about Allah. He says, Allah loves that His allowance be accepted just as He loves His obligations be fulfilled. Isn't that a powerful narration? When a person is traveling, when a person is ill, they accept the allowance of Allah. This is generosity from Allah. Why are you turning it back? You don't need it? You don't need a break. Is that what you're saying? Now, this doesn't mean that a person can't fast. If they want to, they can. The only time they cannot fast is if fasting increases your illness. If fasting hurts your body, it is categorically haram to fast. However, any other case, you can fast. But the scholars differ. What is better, to fast or not? And the answer is to fast. The answer is to not fast, in the correct opinion. The answer is, what is better is to accept the allowance. However, it is to your choice, because you are not, by way of illness or travel, included in the statement of Allah when He commands to fast the month of Ramadan. Understood? You're not included in that. Just like children are not included in that, but we make them fast. They're not included, but we make them fast. Why? To train them, right? And the same thing goes with the ill, and the same thing goes with the elderly, and the same thing goes with the traveler. The same thing goes with the woman who is breastfeeding. The same thing goes with the woman who is pregnant. All of these types of people, 5 types of people, they have an allowance. And there's one more type of person that in the Prophet's time, he made them break their fast because of this. Who can tell me what that is? Not the sick, not the traveler, not the elderly, not the breastfeeding, not the pregnant. One other person, a 6th type. Who can tell me what it is? A time when the Prophet made the companions break their fast. When? Anybody know? It was during Ramadan. Jihad. In the conquest of Mecca. He reached, this is in Sahih Muslim, when they reached a day away from Mecca, he said, it was during Ramadan, the conquest of Mecca. He said, very soon you're going to meet your enemy. Break your fast and build up your strength. Many of the companions didn't break their fast. The next day he said, tomorrow morning you will meet your enemy in battle. Break your fast. And he forced them to break their fast. Radiyallahu anhu. Were they ill? No. Were they traveling? Yeah. But that's not why he made them break their fast. He made them break their fast because of what? Because of this undertaking, this battle that they're going to have. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll continue in discussing the details of illness. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.